And they're coming from everywhere. 5 across the racetrack. Inside Sven Hanover. Between them, Bond Sport. Here comes Workaholic. And he's trotting a storm on the outside. Workaholic on the outside, getting to the front. On the inside, Sven Hanover tries to fight him off. Closing also Ron V. Hanover. It's going to be Workaholic home for Bernie Lindstedt at 157-1. He has won the first leg of the Breeders' Crown Series.
That's the way the excitement started at the Red Mile last Friday in Lexington, as Workaholic indeed won the opening race of the Breeders' Crown for 2-year-old trotting colts. Tonight, ESPN moves to Campbellville, Ontario, Canada for the competition for 2-year-old trotting fillies on the second leg of the Breeders' Crown. Just follow Highway 401 west of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and you'll come upon Campbellville, Ontario, Canada, and Mohawk Raceway. And that's the site for the second leg of our Breeders' Crown for 2-year-old trotting fillies. Hello again, everybody. Sam Smith, delighted to welcome you north of the border, indeed to Canada. I'm always delighted to be working with our host of Down the Stretch, our award-winning racetrack program on ESPN, and of course that's Sharon Smith. Sharon, as we take a look at the Breeders' Crown, another leg here tonight. And those that follow harness racing, I think the eyes of the world may be right here on Canada.
Well, the Breeders' Crown is brand new for 1984. If you're a thoroughbred racing fan, you know about the Breeders' Cup, in which the great race program will take place on one day. Well, the Breeders' Crown Series for standardbreds takes place at 8 different tracks on 8 different days across the continent. And the hope is that the leading contenders in each division will be in those races and champions will be established.
Well, we've broken that into the 8 divisions, certainly, as you take a look at the Breeders' Crown coming up, as we have the Trotters and the Pacers for the Colts and the Fillies in the 2- and 3-year-old division. And we started it out at Lexington, move here to Toronto, Canada, and then have one of the most exciting ones coming up in Pittsburgh after tonight. That'll be next Friday, October the 14th, Edmonton, Canada, for the 2-year-old filly Pacers. Then on the 19th, moving to Chicago for the 2-year-old filly Pacers. Then on October the 26th, we'll be in Washington. Then on the 2nd of November in Philadelphia at Liberty Bell for the filly Pacers at the 3-year-old. And then rounded up once again at Pompano Beach. And that'll be one of the exciting ones for the 3-year-old colt trotters themselves. As all of this comes down to the wire with the 8 championships, Sharon, it's been a long, hard dream, and a lot of hard work has gone into this.
You know, Sam, in the last few years, the sport has come to be supported by the owners who spend an enormous amount of money keeping their colts and fillies eligible for the big money races. Well, this series is an effort on the part of the breeders to sort of support those owners by contributing a good part of the purses here. They nominate the offspring of their own stallions, and that's a good portion of the money, and we're talking about really big money.
Well, you're talking about over $415,000 in U.S. dollars here alone for this race tonight. First place is worth over $207, and you see the breakdown of those going from 1 all the way down to the number 5, and you can see why it's a very important race for the 2-year-old trotting fillies here at the Mohawk in Ontario, Canada. Well, another gentleman working with Sharon and I, as always, is the man from Lexington, Kentucky. We're talking about Kenny Rice, and we go to Kenny now as we'll move downstairs to find out what he feels about this Breeders' Crown. Kenny?
Thank you very much, Sam. And in Lexington, we saw the 2-year-old trotters in the Colts division. Now, at the other end of the spectrum is the fillies, really at the other end of the spectrum, because with the Colts, 4 or 5 could have won it, wouldn't have been an upset. If Davinia Hanover does not win tonight, it will be an upset. She is that good. She is a clear choice here tonight. She's won 11 out of 11 races. She's won more money than any 2-year-old trotting filly ever. She looks strong coming in. Gary Lewis has given her time off. She's raced only 3 times since mid-August. He feels she's strong. And in the bike tonight is the great John Campbell. He has been so red hot as a catch driver. This will be his 5th appearance with Davinia Hanover. Now, there's a couple other horses to watch, actually 3 other horses to watch tonight. This is not a one-horse race. And keep an eye on Harmony. You want to watch out on Harmony Broline. Harmony Broline has a good driver in Bernd Lindstedt. Lindstedt won with Workaholic in the Breeders' Cup for the trotting colts. He looks strong because he's the kind of driver that has a lot of horse at the end of the race. And Harmony Broline's coming off an impressive performance in Lexington. She's been in the money 12 out of 15 times. A couple of other horses to watch, Supreme One and Conifer. They have been racing well throughout the year. They're coming into this race rested. They look strong, and they are horses of also some good quality. So we have 4 good trotters tonight. Davidia Hanover standing out a little above the rest. She is a 9-5 favorite in the morning line. A lot of people are putting down money on her. They expect a minus show pool here tonight. Some of the habitual $2 bettors will lay down $10 tonight on Davidia Hanover. Sam?
Thank you, Kenny. We'll be looking forward to your comments throughout tonight. Before the Breeders' Crown, though, Sharon, we've got the regular 6th race here at Mohawk tonight.
Well, it's a junior free-for-all. Free-for-allers being the best pacers on the grounds. We'll get to see what they look like here at Mohawk, and there's some pretty good pacers involved here.
Kenny pointed out that John Campbell will be in the back behind the favorite, and we'll visit with John Campbell as we'll continue with a look at more of our Breeders' Crown. Coming to you north of the border from Ontario, Canada, we'll have it for you. ESPN as we'll continue after this time out. The 1984 Breeders' Crown on ESPN is brought to you by hardworking Chevy trucks. Nothing works like a Chevy truck. And by Michelob. Some things speak for themselves. We once again are back here at the Mohawk Racetrack in Campbellville, Ontario, Canada, for the exciting Breeders' Crown tonight. 2-year-old trotting fillies. John Campbell is one of the outstanding drivers. He is a Canadian and very, very proud of that. Kenny Rice has had an opportunity to visit with him, not only to talk about his driving, but also to talk about the breeding right here in Canada.
John Campbell has turned catch driving into an art form. And John, going into tonight's race with Davidia Hanover. Now, you have raced her only 4 times coming into tonight. Gary Lewis, the trainer, has been on her 5 times, been in the sulky in the races. What information will you get from him before you take her on the track?
Well, being as I've already raced her a few times, I'm quite familiar with her. I'll just ask him how she's handling this particular racetrack, as she's never raced here, and if there's, you know, if she's feeling extra sharp or just what her disposition is. But it's really no big deal, being as I've raced her before.
Looking at the field, will you handicap this race yourself and take a look at pretty much how everything shapes up and envision what kind of race it will take for her to win, where you want her at certain parts of the race?
Well, you can handicap all you want before the race, and then everything could change once the gate folds. You'll look at the race and see what kind of early speed is and who the main competition you think there is to beat, and take that into consideration, and then as things unfold, you go from there and have to more or less play it by ear.
John, growing up about 100 miles from here, being a Canadian, being involved in the harness racing industry, and looking back on all the contributions made by Canada as far as owners, breeders, trainers, drivers, how do you see this, having 2 of the races in the Breeders' Crown Series here?
Well, I think it's great. Canada is definitely a hotbed for harness racing. They have small tracks all over Ontario in particular, and it's Canada is known for harness racing and hockey, and I think it's really great that they've got 2 of the British Crown.
Obviously, every race is a special race when you go out there. Is it a little more special tonight, though, being close to the home folks?
Well, it's nice to be home. I have some parents and relatives in the crowd, so that's an added attraction for me.
John, good luck tonight.
So John Campbell again will be one of those in the bike tonight, riding in our feature race, the Breeders' Crown, and they're very, very proud of this Canadian. Another thing they're very proud of is over 40,000 people in the breeding business here, and also 400 stallions standing in stud. On the breeding business in Canada, here again is Sharon Smith.
The 13-year-old trotting stallion Dream of Glory was a major stakes winner as a racehorse in the U.S. He's now at stud at Armstrong Farm in Ontario, and is part of the growing standard-bred breeding industry in Canada. His daughter Vicky's Carolyn is the leading Canadian contender in tonight's Breeders' Crown race. Many Canadian breds race well in Canada, but John Hayes, president of the Canadian Trotting Association, says it's vital that Canadian breds become fully competitive in open company.
We're looking for the big horse in Ontario that can be the favorite in the Little Brown Jug, and I think that's, and I don't mean specifically Ontario, it could be British Columbia or Quebec, but as long as he's a Canadian bred and he's the favorite in the Jug, I think we've accomplished something.
There's work going on to accomplish that goal. Charles Armstrong, for example, owns shares in 19 good U.S. stallions, buys well-bred fillies to upgrade his broodmare band, and is trying to stand the kind of stallions who will finally attract U.S. mares in large numbers. Leading 3-year-old pacer Legal Notice will stand here next year, so good mares should come.
Like Americans would rather breed at one time, rather travel 700 miles across state rather than come across the border now. But I kind of think that because they're coming up here racing, they're finding it's not as big of a trouble as they thought it was.
Charles Armstrong's father and uncle established the farm over 30 years ago with the dream of breeding good horses. The Armstrong family has already done that, but the dream remains of breeding even better horses in Canada. And many of these mares are carrying future Breeders' Crown contenders right now.
You'll have a chance to see some of those Canadian-bred horses coming up in our 6th race. The Junior Free-for-All is just all part of our Breeders' Crown Championship Series from Ontario, Canada, coming up after this time out. ESPN welcomes you back to the Mohawk Raceway. Once again here in Campbellville, Ontario, Canada, for the excitement of the Breeders' Crown. Again, the 2-year-old trotting fillies will be in action tonight. Standard bred horses, of course, come for 2 gaits, and that, of course, is the trotting and the pacing. Trotting comes somewhat natural, Sharon, but the pacing apparently is very difficult.
Well, the trot is the natural gait of the horse, and most 4-legged animals, your dog does it, and so does your cat. The pace, however, has to be taught, but strangely enough, the pace is the gait that's easiest to maintain once it's taught. Now, in the pace, the horse's legs on the left side move simultaneously, then the right legs move simultaneously. It's the piece of equipment, usually plastic or leather, called the hobbles that do it for the pacer. They connect those 2 legs on the side. Consequently, it's quite easy for that horse to keep on stride. The trotter, on the other hand, he might get a little excited, might strike himself with another leg and break into a canter or a gallop, which are also very natural gaits of the horses, and that is called breaking, and it's something that no trotting man or woman ever wants to see his horse do.
Well, break, unfortunately for some of those, is very much a part of this game, and the 2-year-olds are the ones most notorious for breaking. How difficult is it to train a 2-year-old trotter to pace or to trot? Well, our man Kenny Rice has been watching that and follows this story.
About 20% of each standard-bred yearling crop consists of them. Most tracks avoid having many races for them. Many trainers will not attempt to prepare them for racing. But this man, Ned Bauer, whose training career consists of 35 years in 4 different decades, trains them and only them. That's been his policy for 15 years now. They are trotters, those diagonally gaited harness racers who often have difficulty sustaining a trotting gait for 1 mile as they get older, much less sustaining one when they are 2 years old. Bauer likes the challenge. He has trained Joe DeVee, Pershing, Anvil, Shortstop, and Dim Bones. He especially likes training the 2-year-olds.
Pacer, you put the hobbles on him, and that pretty well establishes his gait. He can't, do anything else but pace. With a trotter, you have to use weight and length of toe, and the angle's important, and you have to shoo them away from interference. You start out with a 7-8 ounce shoe. Some wear less weight. A trainer that's trained can, after he's driven the horse a while, he makes up his mind what shoe he wants on the horse.
It is still difficult, but each year it gets easier to train 2-year-old trotters, and the reason is because of the breeding line.
In the last 10, 15 years, trotters have become more natural due to selective breeding. When I first started 35 years ago, it was quite a chore. You had to use a lot of weight to get the trotters gaited. Anymore, you just put a nice light shoe on them, and they're pretty well naturally gaited horses. Years ago, they used to switch a lot of the trotters to pacers that had to carry too much weight, or when they got maybe a little sore. Anymore, they don't do much of that. The pacing business is so tough anymore, and it takes such a tremendous horse that the converts really don't make it.
Well, the break in the harness racing, of course, is a thing to avoid, but when a horse does break, they're not automatically disqualified.
No, the driver must avoid interfering with the other horses, usually take him to the outside, and of course the horse can't gain any advantage by his little run. He's going to have to lose ground. In fact, they generally lose an awful lot of ground as they try to get him back on stride.
Davidia Hanover, by the way, one of the top of the trotters you'll see tonight, broke twice in 2 races early this year, came back to win, but that's a special horse.
It's very, very rare. You probably remember the first heat of the Hambletonian this year. Holy Arnie trotting along down the stretch, had the race won. When he struck himself, broke stride. Now, his driver, Tommy Houghton, did exactly what he was supposed to do, looked around quickly to see that he was not interfering, got his horse, or tried to get his horse back on stride. But the finish was coming up, and there was absolutely no way that horse was going to win. So that's what usually happens when they break.
Well, the point we're trying to make is that the 2-year-old trotters tonight are the #1 thing, and I'm sure that'll pay a big effect for tonight's race.
Well, we'll look for breaks. We'll certainly have to do that.
The Junior Free-for-All coming up here as the 6th race at Mohawk continues from Campbellville, Ontario, Canada. It's the Breeders' Crown at ESPN. Don't go away. We'll be back in a moment. Sam Smith and Sharon Smith, along with Kenny Rice, back here in Campbellville, Ontario, Canada. A Junior Free-for-All. This is the 6th race normally in the program here at Mohawk Raceway, and it should be an exciting one. 1 mile for the Pacers. Keep in mind, this is a 5/8 of a mile track, and it's a little bit different strategy. Taking a look at the post positions for these horses tonight as the Pacers will be ready to go. This is the only mare in the race. It'll be Mento J and Reg Gaston, along with Gary Gaston, who is the trainer, are very, very proud and look forward to seeing what this horse can do tonight.
She's already won 10 races this year, and enjoy your look at her. She's a gray. They're very, very rare among standard bred. She's a very attractive gray mare.
In post position number 2 will be Spumante. Spumante will be driven by Ted Jacobs. Jacobs hopes to get this horse in front, and it did get a win in one of its last 3 races.
Well, he's one of those horses that you say earns his keep. Spumante is the number 2. As we look at Minto J, Spumante is the number 2 in the post parade. I guess we like to look at our pretty gray mare there. There's a look at Spumante. He's the son of Most Happy Fellow, one of the great stallions of all time. Died just about a year ago and has many, many fine offspring, including this one, Spumante. He's a little bit of a long shot.
Post position number 3, good look there, is Pro Fighter, and Dave Wall will be in the sulky.
And this is a horse who also earns his way, earns about $50,000 a year. He is a 5-year-old, he's been racing quite a while, and has a win and a second in his last 2 outs.
4th position belongs to Keystone Spectrum. It'll be Trevor Ritchie will be the driver, and Ralph Carroll the trainer.
And this is a horse who's raced his last 2 starts here. He knows the track. He was placed. He earned some money. Not one of the top contenders, but should be right there. Keystone Spectrum.
Number 5 in the post parade for the junior free-for-all, Ludale Hanover. As you saw some more numbers there on the Spectrum, John Brooks will be driving Ludale Hanover. Mike Lombardi is the trainer.
And we're still looking at Keystone Spectrum. We'll get a look at Ludale Hanover when we can pick him out. Keystone Spectrum is driven by Trevor Ritchie, one of the smaller drivers, 125 pounds. And you know, some of the heavier drivers always thought it was okay to be heavy, but the smaller drivers do very well. Ludale Hanover will be among the favorites. This is a horse who's generally in the money, earned $200,000 last year. This is a good horse. The 6th horse is Armbro Arvo. And this, too, is a horse who earns his way $50,000 a year or so in a long racing career so far.
And number 7 to round out the field as you take a good look at Armbro Arvo there. And again, Robin Moore will be in the bike as the trainer. The odds, that's the morning line, by the way. And the 84 best finishing time there, 157-1. Number 7, this is the favorite. It's Amp Troop. And Ron Waples, another outstanding driver here in Canada, will be in the bike.
Ron is one of the drivers who drives a good deal in Canada, but he does come to the United States quite a lot and drives extremely well there, too. F Troop is a top-quality horse. He won $200,000 plus last year, $55,000 this year. Son of Albatross, who, interestingly, is the highest-priced stallion to get his offspring into the Breeders' Crown. Albatross, who has a stud fee of $80,000 and is a good stallion.
By the way, those pacers will be pacing a little bit on the outside on our post parade, but they'll be in the full light as we'll have the junior free-for-all. Coming your way from Ontario, Canada. You see the odds there on the morning line. We return.
This field is now in motion, and there they go. They're off, and pace F Troop is off stride. And as they drive from the gate, Ludale Hanover up on the far outside after that lead. Pro Fighter away well with Minnow J at the rail. Keystone Spectrum, 5th Spumante, 6th Arvo, and F Troop far back. Back pacing now, but out of it. Around the turn now, Ludale Hanover 3 wide, sweeping up to get the lead. Keystone Spectrum between horses, 2nd, Minnow J is 3rd. Pro Fighter is 4th at the rail. Spumante is 5th. Arvo is 6th. They come to the quarter-mile mark, reaching that post in 28 3/5. And now on the outside, it's Ludale Hanover to take charge. 2nd down along the rail, Keystone Spectrum. Minnow J is 3rd. Racing in 4th, Pro Fighter. 5th, Spumante. 6th, Arvo. F Troop away back there in 7th. Going into the clubhouse turn, Ludale Hanover leads a length and a half. Keystone Spectrum, Minto J, and now Spumante moves up on the outside, 4th. Pro Fighter hemmed in 5th at the rail. Arvo is 6th to the outside with cover. F Troop is 7th. And Ludale Hanover gets them past the half-mile mark in 59 3 for driver John Brooks. Racing in 2nd, Keystone Spectrum. Spumante now on the outside is 2nd. On the rail, Keystone Spectrum 3rd, 4th Arvo, 5th Minnow J, 6th on the outside, Pro Fighter, 3/8 to go now. By half a length, Ludale Hanover leading. On the outside, 2nd, and applying pressure, Spumante. 3rd on the outside, that's Arvo. Keystone Spectrum is 4th. 5th on the outside, Pro Fighter. Arvo drives 3 wide at the 3/4 in 1:29 2/5. Around that final turn, Arvo takes charge on the far outside. Ludale Hanover, and here comes Pro Fighter ranging up into contention. Spumante is 4th, Minnow J is 5th, Keystone Spectrum 6th, F Troop is 7th, and they turn down the lane. Arvo under a drive. Pro Fighter trying to close on the outside, Ludale Hanover. Minnow J away out wide, and Spumante coming to the payoff. Arvo by 3 lengths.
Well, there you have Armbro Arvo with Robin Moore, the driver-trainer, driving in with the win here in the 6th race at the Mohawk, and sharing quite a ride as Armbro kind of held back into the pack, finally broke out about the half-mile mark, and raced quite a race here today at Mohawk.
Raced a particularly good race because he was forced awfully wide on the final turn of the race, but he had plenty left and was certainly the best. He was the co-favorite. You notice the other co-favorite, F Troop, braking right at the start, which is extremely rare for pacers, very rare for this horse who doesn't have a history of doing it. So Arvo's job was made a little bit easier when F Troop, the co-favorite, broke stride. Pacers, although they don't often break stride, are very, very hard to get back on stride once they do. And let's take a look. Arvo got himself into good position. We'll give his driver credit for doing that after being forced 3 wide as they entered the final turn. And there was Arvo. The driver looks behind. Nobody's challenging him. He's just making sure everything's fine. No need to push this horse. He's doing just fine by himself. Professional racehorse, as they call him. He knows exactly what to do, and he wins comfortably.
Let's pick it up at the start, and I think we'll see F Troop, one of the favorites, is going to break just as they started on that backstretch.
Sometimes it's hard to pick out what makes him
there you see it right there.
Interesting situation with a pacer, and certainly one who's raced as many times as he has. Unusual. Of course, he lost all chance. He did beat one horse. He kept going. It's very important for the driver when a horse does break stride to keep the horse going so he doesn't get into his head the idea that he gets out of a little work if he tries a canter. So
Armbro Arvo, a 5-year-old pacer, has gone the mile in 1:58 and has taken the 6th race here, a junior free-for-all at the Mohawk Raceway, once again in Campbellville, Ontario, Canada. And we are waiting, of course, for the official results. They officially have number 3 Pro Fighter as the number 2 finishing horse. And there you see the unofficial with Minto J finishing 3rd. 1:58 the time of the race. We'll continue with more of our Breeders' Crown coverage from Ontario, Canada after this. Just minutes away from the 1984 Breeders' Crown here at the Mohawk Raceway, and the favorite at the moment, a 1-9 favorite, Davidia Hanover, unbeaten 11 starts this year, and maybe one of the outstanding fillies in this particular division. The other drivers don't feel it'll be a one-horse race, as they feel they've got enough horse to win this race as well in Canada.
Nobody is putting up the kind of money that was put up tonight to race in the Breeders' Crown unless they thought they had a good chance to get a piece of it. So I think a lot of horses are coming into this race in really good form. I would probably say the Entry and Howard Beisinger's horse would be the probable horses to beat.
I don't expect an exceptionally fast pace, no. There's some, and they're capable of doing it, but I don't expect them to go the first half too fast. If they get down there in a minute or 1-1, I think it'll be about right.
Well, the track condition is good, and it's not really too cold tonight, so I think they'll trot pretty good. And with that filly being the kind of filly is, and in fact, I don't even know what the 2-year-old filly trotting track record is here, but I think she's capable of maybe breaking that, if, you know, under right conditions.
Well, one of the gentlemen with an outstanding chance of maybe winning is Jan Janssen, who brings 3 of his horses in as an entry, 1A, and 1B. And Kenny Rice had a good talk to him about what his chances are in this one tonight.
John Johnson is training 3 of the horses in this race. He's driving Tova Lobel, and he has Harmony Broline. A lot of people like Harmony Broline. She raced well in Lexington. 2 real good races coming into this race. How does she look against Davidia Hanover?
She's a very nice filly, and she's been winning over 200,000 this year. And she trotted 2 good miles down in Lexington, and she's very sound, and everything is fine. So, and she raced up here about 3 weeks ago. She finished 2nd in the Champlain Stake, and so she likes the track. She needs a little more luck because Davidia Hanover, she's a really good filly.
How do you see the race shaping up? You have an excellent driver in Bert Lindstedt. You teamed up and won with Workaholic in Lexington on Friday. Do you see this being a race that is going to come down to a close finish?
Depends, you know, if Davidia gets on top and she can control the speed, you know, it's going to be very tough. Somebody have to get after her early, you know.
Which horse do you see getting after her early?
I hope none of us.
How about this track, going from a 5/8 of a mile track? Does that have any effect on Harmony Broline coming from the mile in Lexington to the 5/8? Because she has raced here earlier on 5/8.
No, they won't bother her at all. But she's been racing in Pennsylvania Sire Stakes on 5/8, and she raced good here, so they won't bother her.
How good is Davidia Hanover? A lot of people are talking about her, John, being the horse to beat. She is undefeated in 11 races.
She's awful good.
The track right now, is it in good shape?
Yes, very good, very good.
What kind of time do you think we may have tonight?
Around 2-1.
If it's that way, that sets things up, you think, for Harmony Broline?
I hope so.
Good luck tonight. Thank you, John Johnson.
Well, good conversation there with Jan Janssen. Once again, Davidia Hanover, Sharon, is once again the heavy favorite here to win this one tonight.
Well, she's odds on, but interestingly, she's dropped. Her odds have dropped since she opened. Opened at 1-9, 1-5. More recent odds 2-5. So this entry is getting some support.
Keep in mind now, of course, a break could be very costly to one of these 2-year-old filly trotters for the Breeders' Crown Championship here at Campbellville, Ontario, Canada. Sharon Smith, Sam Smith, and Kenny Rice back with a call of the race. We return in a moment. 8 of the best 2-year-old fillies ready to do some trotting here in Campbellville, Ontario for the Breeders' Crown Championship. $415,000 plus in U.S. dollars waiting on the line. Over $207,000 going to the winner. This is the Dash for Cash. The post parade coming your way, and of course Davidia Hanover is the favorite, but let's pick up Post Horse number 1, and this of course is one of 3 entries by Jan Janssen. Will be driven by the gentleman who drove Workaholic for the championship in Lexington on Friday. That's Berns Lindstedt, and it's Harmony Broline.
And Harmony Broline's already a winner of 7 races. Her last start, the Lexington Filly Stake, which Jan Janssen was talking about a few minutes ago. An easy winner there. She has a 1:59 record at Springfield on the mile track there, and this filly certainly will give Davidia Hanover everything she needs in this race.
Well, 2 of the last victories came once again at Lexington by 3 and 4 lengths in the last races. 1A still under the Jan Janssen stable here is Maxine Lobel. It'll be driven by Hawk and Baldner, and you know he knows where to get that horse into the lead.
Well, Maxine Lobel has mostly been placed. Most of her money has been earned being placed in major stakes. She does have a good win at Vernon Downs in the Hanover Hemp major stakes for 2-year-old trotting fillies. So she is a winner of a major race, but she mostly is there at the finish rather than in front.
Sharon in the last 6 races, 2:02.1, the best time there, so he'll have to improve. Tova Lobel, again, this is the last of the Janssens, and he'll be driving, so we'll see exactly how he does with 1B.
Well, she certainly is the outsider of the entry. She has just 1 win in her 14 starts. She won a New York Sire Stake earlier this summer at Saratoga. She would certainly be considered the outsider, maybe there to provide some competition perhaps with the other horses in the field.
And in post position number 2, this is Supreme One. Supreme One is once again Howard Beisinger, and he'll be driving along with being the trainer. And this is one that people might be looking at a possible dark horse.
Well, she had a little trouble in Lexington, but when the Grand Circuit was in Delaware, Ohio, she raced extremely well in the Ohio Standard Bred Stake for 2-year-old fillies, winning 1 division, finishing a good second in the other. And she certainly has a chance. She's got kind of generous odds right now, and I think she should probably be a little shorter odds than we're seeing on this filly.
Well, trotting her stuff, once again, Supreme One. Speaking of Supreme One, maybe the name fits better here. Davidia Hanover. This is the favorite. John Campbell, a Canadian, in the bike. Gary Lewis has trained this one, over $446,000 on the winning, and this will truly be a filly to watch in the future, if not tonight as well.
Well, she's 11 for 11, 158 at the Meadowlands. She won the Mary Annabelle there, a major race, the major midsummer race for 2-year-old trotting fillies. She is the odds-on favorite. She has the right to be the odds-on favorite. She's won on the mile track, 3/4 mile track, 5/8 mile track. She has every right to be the odds-on favorite. Now, she has not been competing against the same kind of filly she is competing against tonight. And if there's any hope for the other drivers, that is it, that maybe she's moving up in company here facing these fillies. But she's absolutely done everything that anybody's asked of her so far in her life.
We mentioned that 1-9 odds earlier. The odds are once again going down to 2-5 now. This is another horse that could challenge, and you heard from George Schulte. He feels that Conifer, who has won but $77,000 after a first-place finish just a couple of weeks ago, can also challenge.
Well, Conifer is a very good filly. She's in the best possible hands for a trotting filly. George Schulte loves trotters. He handles them very well, and he has a good filly here. Now, she had a terrible time in a race at Lexington a couple of weeks ago, being parked and breaking and having a very, very bad time. But she was coming off a couple of good races on the Grand Circuit in Ohio, and she raced well in Du Quoin against many of the same fillies, and she's a contender. We have to call her that.
Well, in post position number 5 will be the dark horse for sure, even on the odds boards, 30-to-1 choice. This is Melody Cedar. Bill Fahey will be in the bike, but look for Soren Nordine to have something special for the horse if the horse has a chance.
Well, she hasn't won a race yet, and this would be an awfully big place to break her maiden. Now, we did see on Friday in Lexington, we saw Sven Hanover break his maiden in one of the qualifying heats, so it has been done in this series so far. This filly would have to race awfully well to be able to do it tonight.
And number 6, and this is the last horse. Keep in mind we have a 1A and a 1B. This is the last in the 8-horse field. That's Vicky's Carolyn. This is the only Canadian entry, and it'll be driven by Larry Walker, trained by John Byrne.
Well, she's certainly carrying the hopes of Canadian racing fans. She is the top 2-year-old trotting filly, certainly at Mohawk, presumably in Canada at this moment. She's coming off a win here at Mohawk. She had trouble in a race at Mohawk before that, but she has won a number of races in Canada over the summer. 7, in fact, of her 18 starts, and a lot of people hoping this filly does very well.
Well, our odds right now are 15-to-1. There's a lot of dark horses to maybe consider. We've talked about the favor in Davidia Hanover. Let's find out Kenny Rice's feelings on what this race may come about. Down in the winner's circle now, Kenny.
Thank you, Sam. And Davidia Hanover, the lady has been so good, she's a perfect 11, and look for her to be a perfect 12 after tonight. She will get some competition early, probably. John Campbell coming out of post position number 3, which is not a bad post position for him to be in. He will get out fast along with Harmony Broline, probably, and that looks like the race that is going to shape up. Also, Conifer, I think, has a good shot, and Supreme One. They raced well, as Sharon mentioned, back in Ohio. They've been off a little bit, but they're coming off some pretty good performances, and I think they'll be ready tonight. If one of those 4 don't win, it will be a major upset. But Davidia Hanover, she has been bet down now to 2-to-5, and that was at 1-to-9. She started out. They bet her up, and they bet her back down to 2-to-5. A lot of people like her, and so do I. Sam?
One of the things, thank you, Kenny, to talk about Davidia Hanover, Sharon, you alluded to it just briefly as we took a look at the 2-year-old filly, is the fact that she has not run a great deal as of late, even though her last 2 wins came at Liberty Bell, September the 13th and 19th. Again, some inactivity sometimes can take its toll.
Well, I don't think so on a 2-year-old. In fact, I think this is all for the better. We see so many 2-year-olds who race so very well at 2, and you certainly can't blame the owners and trainers because of the money involved for 2-year-olds. But, you know, you don't hear about those horses at 3. They develop little problems, sore feet, tendons, all sorts of problems. So I think it's extremely wise of her people to race her lightly during the summer. They have a great filly, and they will probably have a great filly next summer as well. She had a full sister who was a superb 2-year-old trotting filly too, Desdemona Hanover. In fact, that filly was so good that it led to this filly, her full sister, being sold at auction for $200,000, which is a huge amount of money for a trotting bred filly. She didn't look like her sister. She wasn't as attractive as her sister, but boy, she sure can race better than her sister Desdemona Hanover could. Even.
Sharon, for those that watched our harness racing on Friday from Lexington, we were on the beautiful Red Mile in Lexington. They, of course, had the full mile track. Here it's 5/8 of a mile. And again, how much strategy, how much difference does that go in as you take a look at another one of the horses that could challenge here, and that's Harmony Broline. What kind of strategy goes in running a 5/8 mile track?
Well, it's not so much strategy as the fact that some horses, because of their body design, really are better suited to mile tracks and half-mile or shorter tracks. Actually, most of the fillies we're seeing have been racing on mile and 5/8 mile tracks, so I don't think we're going to see any problem. Harmony Broline, for example, who you're looking at right now, has raced in the mile track at Lexington, done well. She's raced here at Mohawk, raced well, and has raced at a couple other 5/8 mile tracks, and I don't think we'll have a problem. Sometimes horses with very long strides have trouble on the smaller tracks because they strike themselves as they go around the tighter turns.
Well, $415,000 plus riding here, and let's look at the breakdown. This is the way they'll go. Keep in mind there were no heat eliminations. It is the dash for the cash. First prize were $207,562. Nice way to come to Ontario, Canada, and I think certainly enjoy it. And you see the breakdown all the way to the number 5 spot, $20,756. Sharon, you pointed out in one of our features that they're very, very proud of their breeding here in Canada, and certainly having a part of the Breeders' Crown just kind of adds to that here tonight at Mohawk.
Well, indeed it does. I mean, harness racing has been so popular in Canada for 100 years, and in fact, played a big part in keeping pacing going at the turn of the century, so it's very important here. And we're all getting a chance to see this lovely filly and the rest of the beautiful fillies today.
Well, Davidia Hanover is ready, as you see her starting to trot up to the gate that is now into motion. Her odds are down to 1-5 as this race will go off. The real underdog, of course, Melody Cedar, the top odds there at 50-1. The gate is moving. Again, they go around the top turn. And with the call of the race, here's our track announcer once again, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Earl Lennox.
Trotters are now in the hands of the starter. It's post time. swings into the back stretch for the 7th race. The Breeders' Crown, 2-year-old filly Trotters. There they go.
Well, this 6 horse is the 1B.
They're off and trotting out fast for the lead, Davidia Hanover. And up on the outside, Harmony Broline. As they race to the first turn, Harmony Broline and Davidia Hanover. On the outside now, 3rd, and moving up as they trot around the turn, Maxine Lobel. 4th at the rail, Supreme One. Racing in 5th as they come to the quarter, Conifer. 6th is Melody Cedar. Trotting the 7th is Tova Lobel, and 8th is Vicky's Carolyn. Davidia Hanover leads on the outside. Harmony Broline is 2nd, trying her. At the quarter-mile mark, Davidia Hanover there in 29 4/5. Harmony Broline parked out, still challenging. Past the stand. That's Harmony Broline up to get the lead. Davidia Hanover is 2nd, won't let her go. Trotting 3rd at the rail, Supreme One. Now Harmony Broline does succeed to make the top. Davidia Hanover is 2nd, trotting 3rd, Supreme One. 4th at the rail is Maxine Lobel. Round the turn, and Davidia Hanover is off stride. Going past the half now, and the leader is Harmony Broline. The 2nd, Supreme One, trotting 3rd, Maxine Lobel. The half in 59 seconds flat. Davidia Hanover far back on a break. Now in the back stretch, Conifer is on the move on the outside, trotting 4th. Following her in 5th, Tova Lobel, and 6th at the rail is Melody Cedar. 7th is Davidia Hanover, and 8th is Vicky's Carolyn. Down that back stretch, and Supreme One and Howard Beisinger go to the outside to challenge Harmony Broline for the lead. Trotting up the rail is Maxine Lobel on the outside. Conifer is 4th. Trotting 5th, Tova Lobel. 6th, Melody Cedar. They're by 3/4 in 1:30 2/5. Track record in jeopardy around that turn. On the far outside, Davidia Hanover is flying. This filly is 4 wide and eating up ground as they turn into the stretch. Into the lane now, Supreme One. On the outside, Conifer is 2nd, way out wide. Davidia Hanover in heavy traffic trouble. Coming to the payoff now. It's Supreme One and Conifer. Conifer powering up to get the lead. Conifer, Supreme One. Melody Cedar. Conifer in the Breeders' Crown.
Well, there you have it, as Conifer will win it here tonight for the Breeders' Crown for the 2-year-old Trotters. What a game effort. Davidia Hanover, after a break, just slightly over the half-mile mark, tried to make, but again, traffic sharing really took its toll as Davidia could never come to the outside. Conifer, driven very, very nicely there by George Schulte, raced in for the victory here for the 2-year-old filly Trotters in Campbellville, Ontario, Canada. And quite a drive by George Schulte, but again, unfortunate, as we talked about it all night long, the break by Davidia Hanover, and it cost here as we take a look at the replay of this race. Let's pick it up on the stretch.
Well, Supreme One had managed to take the lead when she had it to herself, and then Conifer, as we expected, 2 of the leading fillies, not the one who was the favorite, challenged her. Both fillies striding out very strongly, and Conifer with just a little bit more left, and there is Conifer with an excellent long stride, and she superbly handled, of course, by George Schulte, who knows how to handle young trotters, and he proved it with her 2-length victory. Now, Davidia Hanover's break came on the first turn. Davidia Hanover, let's see if she might have, yeah, it happened on the turn. I think probably she struck one hoof with another, which caused her to go off stride. And you have to give credit to this filly. She must have made up 20 lengths to catch the rest of the field. A superb performance by her, but obviously, as we said, she just lost too much. Hopefully she hasn't hurt herself. She's wearing a lot of boots, so presumably that protected herself. Disappointment for Davidia Hanover. Good performance by Conifer.
Well, Conifer, of course, comes in as the victor. The odds on the board, 9-1 favorite. A correction, one of those to win, as Conifer will win it. Supreme One finishes 2nd. Melody Cedar, one of the real outside shots, finishes 3rd, unofficially, a time of 2:01.2. We'll be back with more of the Breeders' Crown in a moment. The Breeders' Crown for the 2-year-old filly Trotters has been won here tonight in Ontario, Canada by Conifer, as Davidia Hanover once again broke, never got himself totally back on stride until about just over the halfway mark. Came on gamely but did not win, and Kenny Rice has a visit with George Schulte in the winner's circle.
Thank you, Sam, and congratulations, George Schulte. A race coming in tonight. You expected that going out in the early lead would be Harmony Broline would be out there battling for that lead along with Davidia Hanover. They were. Then Davidia breaks coming into the first time around the grandstand. What was your feeling with Conifer? You had her back and in pretty good shape, looked like all the way.
Well, actually, she didn't warm up good tonight, and my main concern was to keep her on the trot and try to get a check until we got past the half. And the farther she went, the better gated she got. It seemed like she kind of got thawed out or something, because she really was trouble getting around the first turn. And then when I saw Davidia go off stride and my filly was getting better and going up the backstretch, I thought at that particular time I had a chance to win, and that was the first time tonight.
Okay, George, let's take a look now. Coming in here and take a look at your horse, Conifer, getting another challenge from Supreme One.
Yeah, well, at that point, Howard was driving his filly, and I was still kind of sitting on mine, and I thought I could beat him to the wire, and which I did by length. And actually, she was kind of comfortable finishing. I never spoke to her.
Yeah, it looked like you had a lot of horse at the finish.
Didn't have a lot of horse. I just kind of holding her together, but she trotted right onto the wire.
But she started out a little slow, you say, tonight, huh?
Yes, she warmed up a little bit sore, and her hocks are starting to get to her.
She doesn't look bad here at the finish, as you see. Conifer with George Schulte.
She looked awful good to me right there.
Trophy looks awful good, too, right?
Yes, sir. Certainly does.
Congratulations to you and to Castleton Farm. George Schulte, the winner, with Conifer of the Breeders' Crown Series here for the 2-year-old trotting fillies. Congratulations, George.
Thank you.
Conifer is the winner. Went off at 10-9, or 10-1. As you take a look at the celebration here, that is John Cashman now from Castleton Farm moving in. Photographers gather around. And Conifer is the winner for the 2-year-old trotting fillies. Sam?
Thank you, Kenny. And again, George Schulte, a man of somewhat few words, but nonetheless a lot of determination. By the way, there is an inquiry into the third-place finisher. That would be Melody Cedar. It would have been a big horse going out, and of course the odds dropped down to, well, I think they have the odds for the next race. I think Melody Cedar was a very, very long shot, finishing in third, Sharon.
Yeah, there could have been some interference in the stretch. I don't know exactly what it was. We were so busy seeing if George's filly could hold on, and she did look good. She might have been a little tight warming up, but she certainly looked good at the finish. Interestingly enough, Davidia Hanover, according to her people in her very first warm-up tonight, acted up a little bit. And they said that she had done that before. Well, maybe she was a little nervous about the trip and everything, and maybe that had something to do with her breaking stride. But can't take the victory away from Conifer, who was strongest at the finish.
Well, Conifer, indeed, 19th start of the year, only the 6th first-place finish. Had won only $77,000 coming tonight, but tonight wins over $207,000 at the Breeders' Crown. Once again in Campbellville, Ontario, Canada. Back with more after this. The crowd here at the Mohawk Raceway still buzzing over Conifer's win in the Breeders' Crown for 2-year-old trotting fillies, and they're still buzzing in the winner's circle, where our man Kenny Rice has a special interview. Kenny?
Okay, thank you, Sam. With me is the general manager of Castleton Farm, John Cashman. John, congratulations. Conifer coming across the line first.
Thank you very much, Kenny. This is a wonderful night, and I only wish the owners, Mr. and Mrs. Frederick Van Lennep, and Mr. Bill Simon, and Mr. Hanley Dawson were here to share this great experience with me tonight, but I know they're watching it live on television at home, and I'd like to congratulate them. It's a wonderful night.
Looked strong. She looked real strong coming in the stretch. Now, George said she had a little problem, though, at the start, a little tight, but you said that is not unusual for her to start out slow in a race.
Well, she's a filly that's a little bit harder on herself. She grabs on, she won't relax, and, you know, I think it takes her a little bit to thaw her out. George likes to try to get her off the gate and help her relax and keep her off horses. By that I mean he doesn't like to be uptight on horses, hoping that she'll relax a little bit in the mile, and she's stronger finishing. And I think he was able to accomplish some of that by staying 4th or 5th on the rail and being able to follow Howard Beisinger when he pulled out, and that made her a lot stronger finishing.
Davidia Hanover breaking stride, that is always the risk, especially with the younger trotters.
Oh, no doubt about it. That's been going on for years, and it will continue to go on. She's a great filly, but this filly here is the world's champion also on a half-mile track just 3 weeks ago.
Coming down the stretch there, it was her against Supreme One. She broke Supreme One's record just a couple hours after she set it on that half-mile track.
Well, that's correct. You know, and she just trotted right on by Supreme One tonight. This is a good mare, and she'll be a lot better 3-year-old as she winters well and puts on a couple of 100 pounds.
John Cashman, thank you. I know they're celebrating in Lexington right now. John Cashman, general manager of Castleton Farm, and Castleton Farm's Conifer, the winner here tonight. Sam?
Winners of over $207,000 in this race for the Breeders' Crown. And Sharon, even though we saw an outstanding filly with a break in Davidia Hanover, still an outstanding filly in the 2-year-olds, and still to be heard from many, many years down the road.
Well, very, very consistent. Now, we are going to look now, see if we can figure out what the stewards are looking for with the number 5 filly who finished 3rd, but there is an inquiry against her. See if we can see any tight quarters here on the turn.
Davidia on the outside. This once again trying to go almost hooking of the wheels there.
Yeah, well, you know, that does happen in races. It's the inquiry is not against Davidia Hanover, so we'll just have to wait till the stewards decide what they want to tell us about this finish here.
The results for first and second, once again, with Conifer, the winner, and the number 2 horse, and of course that would be Supreme One finishing first and second, as you see Conifer trotting for home and the victory here in the Breeders' Crown. But again, there is an inquiry on the 3rd place finishing filly, and that, of course, would be Melody Cedar, and some long odds on that particular horse.
Well, presumably involving that incident on the turn, if indeed they dropped her down, that would move Davidia up into 4th place, but we still have to wait and see.
Well, this has been quite an exciting night. Davidia Hanover, after a break after the half mile, they had gone 59.5, and this is where the break occurred.
She gets very rough strided right here. She's about to go, and I think here she goes. Her driver clearly knew she was about to go, pulled her out. He was very wise to do that.
The Breeders' Crown on ESPN has been brought to you by hardworking Chevy trucks. Nothing works like a Chevy truck. And by U.S. Air, the airline that offers 1,000 flights every business day to more than 90 cities across the United States and Canada. Here's a reminder that the Breeders' Crown will be coming your way from the Meadows in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. One of the top 2-year-old colt pacers. It'll be Annihilator going after all of the other fields starting at 9 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time this Friday on ESPN. For Sharon Smith and Kelly Rice, this is Sam Smith saying so long from Campbellville, Ontario, Canada, and the Breeders' Crown.